You've probably heard this story before. An old grandfather sits with his grandson and says, "Inside every person, there is a battle between two wolves. One is anger, envy, greed, and fear. The other is joy, peace, love, and courage. Which one wins?" The grandson sits and thinks. The grandfather answers, "The one that you feed." This is everywhere. Motivational posts, therapy rooms, self-help books, and for good reason. It creates a very powerful image. But there's something that nobody mentions when they share it. The grandfather never existed. Welcome to Perspectus, a channel where we break down ideas, concepts, and moments of history to help you think sharper, see clearer, and reshape your reality. More importantly, it is about building a community of people committed to growth, perspective, and understanding. If that's you, you're in the right place. The story was invented, but not by a Cherokee elder, instead by a 1970s Christian evangelist. And when that fact comes out, most people either dismiss it or just ignore it and keep sharing the story anyway. But here's the thing. The truth the story is pointing to, that's real. More real than any ancient fable. And when you understand it properly, it's no longer the motivational poster version. But what's actually happening is in the brain and in the inner life. It changes the question entirely. It stops being which wolf wins and it becomes something far more useful. So, the story behind the story. Let's deal with the origin first, because this matters. In 1978, American evangelist Billy Graham published a book called The Holy Spirit, Activating God's Power in Your Life. In it, he included a parable, not about wolves, but about two fighting dogs, which he attributed to an Eskimo fisherman. One dog represented good, the other evil. Which one wins? Well, the one you feed. This story spread. By the time it reached mainstream culture, the Eskimo fisherman had become a Cherokee grandfather, the dogs had become wolves, and the Christian moral had been smoothed into something more universally palatable. A fabricated piece of wisdom, dressed in the clothing of indigenous tradition. Now, this doesn't mean the image is worthless. Stevenson put it differently. Man is not truly one, but truly two. And he said that in 1886. Freud built an entire theory of psyche around the same divided architecture. The idea of inner conflict is one of the oldest and most persistent observations in human history. The problem isn't the metaphor. The problem is what we do with it, how we interpret it. Because the good wolf, bad wolf, contains a trap most people walk straight into. And to understand the trap, you need to understand what the dark wolf actually is. So, why is the dark wolf so loud? Here is something that should reframe everything for you. Your brain does not give equal weight to positive and negative experience. It never has. Neuroscientists call it a negativity bias. And it's not a flaw, but it's a feature. The amygdala part of your brain that processes emotion and threat devotes roughly 2/3 of its neurons to detecting danger. Negative experiences register faster, they hit harder, and they stick longer in the memory than positive ones. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes complete sense. An ancestor who over-indexed on good experiences ended up dying. The ones who stayed alert to threats, well, they survived. They reproduced. The negativity bias is the biological inheritance of tens and thousands of years of staying alive. What this means, practically, is that the dark wolf isn't loud because you're broken or weak. It's loud because it was designed to be. And here's where the neuroscience gets very interesting. What we repeatedly attend to, what we choose to focus on, return to, or ruminate over, this literally reshapes our neural pathways. There is a principle in neuroscience. Neurons that fire together wire together. Rehearse fear, and the brain builds faster roads to fear. Rehearse resentment, and resentment becomes the default route. Marcus Aurelius understood this 2,000 years ago, before neuroscience had even entered the vocabulary. He said, "Your mind will be like its habitual thoughts. The soul becomes dyed with the colour of its thoughts." Not a poetic flourish, a precise observation. The inner life is not fixed. It takes on the tint of what is repeatedly soaked in. Attend to bitterness long enough, and bitterness stops feeling like a choice. Instead, it becomes feeling like who you are. So yes, what you feed grows. The part of the story is right, but here is where most versions go wrong. So, what if I told you there was a problem with starving the dark wolf? The story implies a simple solution. Stop feeding the bad one. But what happens when you actually starve it? Robert Louis Stevenson spent years thinking about this. In 1886, he wrote The Strange Case of Dr Jekyll and Mr Hyde. The story of a respectable scientist who, convinced that his darker impulses were separate from his true self, invented a way to expel them entirely. He did not want to manage Hyde. Instead, he tried eliminating him. What happened instead? Hyde grew stronger. Each time Jekyll suppressed his shadow, the rebound worsened. The thing he tried to erase became the most powerful force in his life. Stevenson was writing about Victorian repression, but the psychological principle holds. Freud arrived at the same conclusion from a different direction. What we suppress doesn't disappear. Instead, it goes underground. The ignored finds other routes to expression. Anxiety, compulsion, outbursts that seem disproportionate to their trigger. The dark wolf, denied long enough, stops waiting for permission. We see this play out in ordinary life all the time. The person who insists they're never angry goes on to say something devastating. The person who claims they have no ego and then bristles instantly at the mildest slight. Suppression is visible in the overreaction. This is the trap in the two wolves story. If you take it to mean good thoughts only, suppress the rest, you haven't fed the good wolf, you've just hidden the other one. The dark wolf isn't simply evil. Anger tells you that something has been violated. Fear tells you something is at risk. Envy, uncomfortable as it is to admit, often points to what you actually want. These emotions are information signals. The problem isn't that they exist, it's what you choose to do with them. The gap between feeling and acting. Now here's the real question. Not which wolf wins, but which wolf you act from. Because feeling the angry wolf and choosing to act from the patient one, that's not suppression. That's the whole game. That gap between what you feel and what you choose is where character actually lives. Think about the everyday version of this. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The angry wolf fires immediately. That's the negativity bias doing exactly what it was designed to do. You can't stop the feeling, but you can choose how you react. You can let it sit, notice it, and then decide not to carry it forward with you for the rest of the day. Another example, social media. You see someone's success and feel that pull of comparison. Most people either indulge in it, spiraling into inadequacy, or they suppress it and pretend they feel fine. The third option is harder and way more honest. You notice the envy, acknowledge what it is telling you. Maybe it's pointing towards something that you actually want for yourself. And then you can make a conscious choice about where you go from there. A final example is a mistake at work. The self-critical wolf goes into immediate overdrive. It says, I should have known better. This reflects badly on me, or I'm not good enough for this. That is not evil. It's a version of care. It means you're invested. But if you act from that wolf, if you let it run the response, you're more likely to spiral. However, if you notice it and take what's useful, i.e. what you would do differently, and then choose to act from there, you become way more measured. Every one of these moments is a feeding event, and the honest truth is that most of us aren't making a conscious choice in any of them. We're just reacting. The wolf that wins most of the time is the one with the strongest neurological road already built in. This is why practice matters. So, what's the real answer? I believe it's not suppression, not performance, but in fact, it's awareness. The practice is simple in theory and genuinely difficult in action. Notice when you're feeding, not after the fact or not whilst you're in the spiral, but in the moment or as close as you can get to the thought. What you should think is, which wolf am I acting from right now? That's the key, not feeling, but acting. Marcus Aurelius called it the space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl called it freedom. The Stoics built their entire system of ethics around this, the idea that you cannot always control what happens to you, but you can almost always control what you do next. The grandfather in the story said the winner is the one you feed. He was right about that, but he left something out. You can feed both wolves simultaneously. You probably will every single day. The angry one, the envious one, the fearful one, they aren't going anywhere. They weren't designed to. Your brain built them to keep you alive. If you found value in this, make sure to like and subscribe to join the Perspectus community. We're hoping to build something meaningful here, and I'd like to hear your perspective too, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.